Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Blue Maxima, and I want to talk to you for a little bit about GalGun Returns. Because GalGun Returns is honestly a massive disappointment to me, and you might think, how can this possibly be a disappointment to you? It's a game you never got to play. It's a game in the GalGun series, which you're known for liking for its silly situations, its decent gameplay with a bit of a light gun twist to it, which is actually something that isn't really that deeply explored these days, and sometimes the stories can actually be alright. Well, as it turns out, this is a remaster of the original GalGun, so they really took the word remaster seriously. Although it says GalGun Returns, but it really should be called GalGun Remastered. Now, I never played the original GalGun. It was PS3 and 360 Japanese exclusive, and I had nowhere near the money I would need to import a copy of it back then, let alone understand what the hell I was doing, because I was like 12 and stupid and what have you, but nevertheless, the main problem with this remaster is that it doesn't really import many of the good things about the games that came after it. With that said though, let me tell you why. I played this for about 2 hours and I completed one of the story modes. It was the girl named Kaoruko. And I always go for the girl's name Kaoruko. I don't know why. It's just a really fun name. But nevertheless, the gameplay is really simple this time around. And so is the story. It's also really simple this time around. So, the story is basically the beginning of every other GalGun. An angel has come down from heaven to start her job as Cupid, accidentally shot 6 arrows up your ass, and now you're wanted by every single girl in your school. And they will come up to you and they will try and beat the shit out of you with their confessions. And I always find this bit to be kind of hilarious. They just kind of grab this letter so tightly and hit you with it that it hits you like a freaking brick and you drop to the ground. I think that's great. It's such a silly concept, and there's so much you can do with it. And GalGun 2 and GalGun Double Piece have already done a lot of this exploring. So what do with GalGun Returns? They just use the original story, which is go confess to the girl that you like out of the 4 that you picked from the very beginning. You just go. You just fight off waves of girls, keep falling into situations with this girl that you like, and then it's more or less done. You get to the end and hopefully you've got the stats that you need in order to confess to her. And hopefully you've got a decent score along the way, because the score might actually matter in getting the best ending. I couldn't tell you, but nevertheless it makes things just that little bit more difficult. So, what about the gameplay? What's wrong with the gameplay? The problem with the gameplay is that it's way too simple. Like, it is legitimately the simplest of these games that I have played, just because there's almost nothing to it. So, you've got your cursor, you move it over a girl, you click to shoot her. If your mouse moves over the weak spot of the girl, you'll be alerted with a prompt, and if you manage to shoot that place, you'll get what's called an ecstasy shot, which is worth more points, and you'll knock the girl out immediately. So far, so good. Although you have to hit that weak spot the first time through. If you hit any other place, you'll have to just hammer away at the mouse button until the girl falls over. Satisfied, shall we say. And you move through these levels linearly. You're on a set path, and there's nothing you can do to diverge from it. And once you get to the end, you're ranked in your score. And that's basically it. That is legitimately all there is to the gameplay. It doesn't have any of the other neat features. Like, the ones I remember from GalGun Double Piece, which really helped, were, like, quests that you could do that added objects to the environment. There were these little hidden alien things that would give you a ton of bonus points if you managed to find them by shooting a bunch of the crap out of the way or hitting really precise shots. And split paths. That's a big one that kind of went walkabout in this one. Every single level in this game is linear. You just go through it, which means that it's going to be really repetitive, going through all the same levels. And I'm going to also point out that the game is really easy. Now, I played this on the Seasoned Lover difficulty, which is just kind of weird. I would have expected to be more of a Doki Doki pun, which they use like 100 other times, but apparently not. But I am also playing on the PC, which means keyboard and mouse, which means I'm super accurate in whatever I do. But it still means that I'm able to just basically steamroll through the game. I got a rank SS on my first try. It isn't really that hard. The game is definitely designed for controllers, but man, it would have been nice to have a version specific to PC. And by version, I mean like difficulty level or something, you know? But yeah. The other thing that you can do in the main modes is the, whatchamacallit, is the Doki Doki mode, where you middle click on a character, and you have to slowly move around their body using the WASD keys, oddly enough. The mouse does nothing except zoom in and fire, so it feels weird moving it and thinking, what the hell's going on? Why can't I move it this way? But it just doesn't work for whatever reason. But the idea with the Doki Doki mode is that you got to hold the right mouse button to zoom in on an area, press the left mouse button when you zoomed in enough to get a decent amount of the love meter on the left to go up, rinse and repeat. And it is immensely boring because you just have to kind of randomly wander around the body, look for the prompt to come up, then just hold the right mouse button, zoom in and hope it lets you get in a little bit before you actually click it, because the further in you get, the more points you get on the left. But at the same time, the character has the ability to block, but they don't seem to have any sort of rhyme or reason to when they decide to block you zooming in. So it honestly feels quite random just how much of that love meter you can get filled every single time that you play through this. As a result, the game feels random, you do the exact same thing every time, and trust me, it wasn't that appealing the first time. It's nowhere near as appealing the 10th time. And the thing is, you have to do this, because you have these miscellaneous stats going on off to the side. It's basically strength, intelligence, and, not dexterity, it's like art. So it's like style, intelligence, and athleticism, or something along those lines. There's also lewdness, but I have no idea what affects that. It just seems to go up into 100 no matter what you do, and it's like, we're playing GalGun. Lewdness is always at 100. It just doesn't make any sense. But anyway, as I was saying, you have to do the Doki Doki mode, because if you don't, you won't be able to upgrade your stats. You are asked in a little personality quiz what you like to do and what you don't do, and that will raise or lower some stats at the beginning. But other than that, it's nothing but Doki Doki mode. And you have to do the Doki Doki mode on the students or the teachers in order to get those stats to go up. But they can also go down. So if you know what stat you're going for any particular girl because you've been paying attention to their personality, or you've just played through the game a bunch of times and you know what you're doing, you basically have no idea whether or not doing a Doki Doki mode on a certain girl is going to raise or lower the stats that you need. The only one I found that was going to raise everything were the teachers. So I just kept doing it on the same teacher, like 3 times in a row, if you're wondering why I picked on the same teacher twice in this video. But yes, sometimes some of the stats will go down. So not only is it random in the sense that you gotta hope that you don't get blocked while you're zooming in, but it's also random whether or not you're gonna get the results you want at the end. Which just makes it all the more frustrating, and therefore all the more boring. So the entire main game is basically just a slog. There's nothing to it. There's a lot of randomness. And even for the parts where it tries to be difficult are just annoying. Like there's these little bits where you'll see a character off to the side and you need to be immensely quick, to the point where you need to know that they were there to begin with. At least with the ones where their heads are popping up, like out of a trash can or something, which I think is adorable, by the way. This guy's literally been shot in the ass 6 times by Cupid. He's attracting everyone in the school, but these poor girls are so shy that they can beat a heavenly being in terms of just like a duel of wills. And it's hilarious. I'll be close to him, but I'm not going to go and talk to him at all. It's kind of great. Nevertheless, there are just these characters that are just so hidden out of frame that it just drives me nuts trying to get them, because they're there for a very short time and it just doesn't feel fair to anyone who hasn't gone through the stage like 3 times and memorized their position. Wish there was less of that shit. You do also get these things in the middle of the story, like these mini games where you basically just have to shoot the targets that are in the exclamation points. That's all you need to know. The circumstances will change, but the gameplay is always the same. and they're just kind of easy. Even the boss fights at the end of the game are, well, the boss fight, I should say, is really easy. You just click on them when the exclamation points are there. I can't even imagine this being too hard on the actual consoles. So yeah, I got nothing for the gameplay. It's really not that good. The main reason why I liked GalGun Double Piece and GalGun 2 was that they tried to be different. They tried to integrate some weird mechanics that just made it interesting. But this is just so fucking boring that I just can't help but not be entertained by it in the slightest. It's not helped out by a bunch of other things. One, the port is kind of fucked. If you might have noticed by the footage you're watching on your screen right now, or should I say hearing, the sound levels are completely out of whack. There are some objects that are just way too loud in comparison to literally everything else. Like the helicopter overwrites the voices, the rest of the sound effects, and even the music. You can't hear a goddamn thing over these chopper blades, and it isn't like the only unique thing that does this. Like, the Doki Doki mode isn't particularly great about it either, because the music and the sound effects override the voices, and there's a bunch of other things. I imagine that it isn't exclusive to the one story path I had time to play. So, yeah. The port itself is, like, outside of that, okay, but there's a really weird thing that I feel the need to point out. You can't play this game one-handed. Now, I know this is a weird thing to say, but just hear me out here. When you're playing the main game, all your controls are on the mouse, minus like the Doki Doki mode, which has you pressing WASD, whatever, right? But you're moving the mouse, clicking to shoot, and you've also got the ability to hold the right mouse button to zoom in, but there's basically 0 point to it, because you're on a locked path, and when it turns, you're going to completely lose sight of what you were working on anyway, and being on the mouse makes it so precise that it seems unnecessary to have in the first place. You've also got keyboard controls to slow down your aiming or speed up your aiming, but again, mouse, what's the point? Anyway, the thing is, when you're in these visual novel sections, in between the actual levels, you can't control them with the mouse. You can't move your mouse to like select a choice, you can't click the mouse to just move the dialogue boxes forward one thing, you just have to go back to the keyboard. Why? I don't know. It's weird. Like, surely someone was playing this and testing and was like, I'd really like to be able to do that. You can make the mouse, you can make the menus go up and down with the mouse wheel and scroll left and right using the mouse buttons or something like that, you know? It just seems entirely against the point. It also doesn't have that much in the way of game settings, but I mean, it's a PlayStation 3 game. It looks like a PlayStation 3 game. There's really not that much impressive about it. The environments are relatively empty and uninteresting. Just the general effects aren't really that impressive. The models are nice, although they do appear a bit flat. And I don't mean flat in the chest area, I mean they kind of just look flat. No real dimensions to them. The voice lip syncing that they've got on the 3D models in the VN areas are kind of interesting, but like that's about it. The game is not a looker in the slightest. There's also very little in the way of PC options. You can limit the frame rate to 30 or 60. I mean, okay, sure, why not? Very little in the way of options that you need to select, but yeah, again, PS3 game. Maybe it's been upgraded a little for like PS4, but I mean, it'll probably run on a decent toaster, you know? Nothing particularly interesting going on here. Also very little in the way of content, so you've got the story modes. The one that I played took me a little under 2 hours, which I thought was great because it was enough time for me to get my refund. There's also a score attack mode, which takes you through the same set of levels again, but you gotta try and get as much score as possible. Again, hit the weak points for massive score boosts. Then there's also a third mode, but for whatever reason, it was locked off to me. The Doki Doki Carnival, which brings back the two fairies from GalGun Double Piece. And I have no idea how the hell you're supposed to unlock this mode, because I finished the story mode. Why wouldn't you let me play the Doki Doki Carnival after that? I've got no idea. And frankly, I didn't want to bother going through the rest of the story modes in order to find out how I was supposed to unlock this mode in the first place. And everything else is just window dressing. You've got profiles that you need to fill in for all of the achievements, but these profiles require you to do the Doki Doki mode on every one of like the 70 unique girls that they've got in the game 3 times minimum. So no thank you. You've also got a dressing room where you can dress up all the different girls in different outfits, but outside of that particular menu, there doesn't seem to be a way to import it into the game. So if you want all the girls to be running around wearing bunny suits, you can't do that. And I was immensely disappointed with this because that would have been great. They do say that they included all the DLC, but I'm assuming all the DLC was just the different costumes. And there's also a manual, but it doesn't really tell you all the important things you need to know, like how the stats are important, how Doki Doki mode can make some of them go up and go down, how you're supposed to find out who's good for what's down and what's not, without just throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks. And you know what the worst part is? It's the price. So, to get this game, I paid $63 Australian. Not great, but it's normally $70. Just to give you an idea, modern gen games are $80. So they want you to pay like $10 less in order to get a game like this. Frankly, I'd have trouble convincing people to buy this at like $20 US. Because frankly, it's at a stupid price. There is at least a decent amount of content, like 2 hours for each of the story modes they include. There's also like a common route or an all-in-one route you can do in the score attack, and there's probably something along the lines of like, you know, a decent amount of unique content for the Doki Doki Carnival. But still, with gameplay this basic, with the PC port being so weird as to screw up the audio mixing and make it so that you can't even use the mouse on something that it would make sense to use the mouse for. And just the general eh-ness of it. Like, it's clearly meant to be like a remaster, but they put so little effort into making something interesting. As a result, I just can't recommend it. In fact, you know what I can recommend? Guess what's on sale right now on Steam? GalGun Double Piece. Fair bit more interesting, more in the way of gameplay mechanics, more interesting things like having split levels that you have to pick whether or not you want to go left or right, and just more to it, more meat on the bones, one might say. And it's currently on sale for $10 Australian, versus the $70 that you would pay for this. I don't know if the game's still available on the PlayStation Store, like, you know, judging by the luck we've had with games being delisted lately, it might actually be gone by the time this video goes up. But yeah, frankly, couldn't give less of a shit about GalGun Returns, and I implore you to do the same. Somewhat related note, since this video is probably not going to get the friendly advertiser tick on YouTube, I might as well say the name of a forbidden game that's coming up on this channel. I learned recently the next entry of the Rance series is being released in English on the 25th of February. And I am so going to be doing a video on that. That's going to be fun. Hopefully it's going to be a lot more fun than this piece of shit. I'm going to let you watch a bit more of the gameplay. There's more girls to be hit in the ecstasy spots, and there's also a boss fight, which, oddly enough, is even easier than the main game. It's weird that the targets are so infrequent and so easy to defeat in comparison. Like, at least in the main mode, you have to look around the girl in order to find the weak spot. In the boss fight, all you need to do is point, click, click, point, click, click, point, click, click, point, click, click. That's it, you've won, you're done. But yeah, this has been Blue Maxima. I'll see you all next time.
どうしようかな。ダメ。どうしようかな。どうしようかな。お尻やばいよ。マジチェキし。マジチェキ。何？そんなにマジになんなくても。よかったかも。こういうの好きですよ。いいな。チキショー。幸せです。いいじゃないか。さすがです。隙がありませんでした。
先ほどは失礼いたしました。
どうぞお通りください。お嬢様は美術室にいらっしゃいます。
そうですがチャンスです。行きましょう天蔵様。ゴーゴーゴー。発見しました。一緒に君への思いだ。力が入らない。どう？ラメー。ニーハオ。最高。何か問題でも。どうしました。頑張って耐え抜いてください。それが男ってもんです。発見した。これ発見した。 何かほらやめなさい。何かお尻とか違反です。何かもう言うこと聞いて。生徒の頼みだしいい加減にしなさい。生徒の頼みだしそこは校則違反です。もう言うこと聞いて。やっぱりダメ。ほらダメです。やっぱりダメ。やっぱりダメ。ほら私先生です。よく耐えました。感動しました。さっきはありがとう天蔵。おかげで犯人も逮捕されたと報告があったわ。そうね。SP たちもあなたに感謝していたわ。あなたの功績よ。もっと誇りなさい。ねえ天蔵、私が危険だったのを見てどう思った？心配かけたわね天蔵。何？人の魅力はそれぞれね。でもやっぱり私を守ってくれるような人が好きかも。そうですね。黒服さんたちのいない今、ガーディアンもいないはず。では行きますよ。ドキドキフィールド展開です。天蔵様、ガンバ。またそれなの。もう飽きたわ。終わったのかしら？もう次はないわよね。へっぽこなのは天蔵様ですよ。パタコ、読み違いしてました。黒服の人たちがガーディアンなわけないじゃないですか。これはカオルコさんのプライドです。プライドがガーデ のことを虫けらぐらいにしか思っていないんです。その通りです。蓋を開けてみれば簡単な答えでした。恐ろしい人です。天蔵、あなた素敵だわ。とっても素敵な召使いになるわね。決めたわ。あなた一生召使いとして私に仕えなさい。この私に一生仕えることができるのよ。感謝していただけるかしら。うわ、すっごい男泣き。どうしてって、私がしたいからよ。そんな泣くほど喜んでくれて嬉しいわ。天蔵様、この方冗談で言ってるのではないようですよ。天蔵様、どちらへ？かなりの相性ですよ。あと少しです。かかってきなさい。食らいなさい。食らいなさい。食らいなさい。食らいなさい。随分と良い。天蔵、何をする？少しはやるみたいだけど、まだよ。食らいなさい。食らいなさい。食らいなさい。食らいなさい。プレゼント用意。天蔵、あなた何を少しはやるみたいだけど、まだよ。食らいなさい。